So the success or failure of the Equator Principles really depends on whose perspective you're talking about. From the perspective of the Equator Principles Association, they think they've achieved the gold standard in social and environmental performance. You'll see there's a quote from Citi, the Citibank, which talks about the enormous success over the last 5 years of the Equator Principles. And yeah, they have market penetration. Almost all of the major commercial banks now apply the Equator Principles. But there are still a lot of critics, and the Equator Principles Association is trying to evolve to deal with those criticisms. There's a strategic review underway that will report back early next year, and so hopefully we'll see some of those problems dealt with. And the reality is that the Equator Principles still sit alongside numerous other standards that developers have to apply, so there's a lot of complexity still there which undermines the ultimate goal. From the perspective of the banks, when they're thinking about whether or not to adopt the Equator Principles, there are a lot of factors in play. It's not really a competitive advantage anymore in the current market. The diagram that you see there is a diagram of EP banks versus non-EP banks. And the home of the Equator Principles banks is the white dots. And what that shows is that, A, the vast majority of financial institutions outside Europe, which has very high environmental and social standards by law, the vast majority of them are not Equator banks. So if you're a bank competing against others in the international market, you're competing against Chinese banks, against Middle Eastern banks, and they're not Equator Principles banks. So this is not necessarily a competitive advantage. Some banks see it as an educational tool for their people to explain how to deal with environmental and social risk. Some see it as a greenwash, pinkwash, a shield from criticism. But others see it as, look, we really want to apply higher standards, but we really think this is a completely ineffective tool to do so. So they may use the framework of the Equator Principles internally, but not adopt the principles themselves because they think it's just an administrative burden. It's just about process. It doesn't achieve the goal in the end.